Ukrainian bravery and blood was the key to halting Vladimir Putin's invasion last year, but there is no doubt that Western weapons are what will win the war. President Zelensky was in Washington just before Christmas to see Joe Biden hand over another billion-dollar aid package, this time containing Patriot anti-air systems. But Ukraine's military commanders say a lot more will be needed if they're going to drive Vladimir Putin's armies back over the border. These are the Western weapons that have already had the most impact on the Ukrainian battlefield. Ukraine's goal at the start of the war was simple: survive. In order to do that, Kiev's armies had to kill as many Russian soldiers as possible while losing as few of their own men as they could. And that meant destroying Russian tanks and armored vehicles. A lot of them. This is where weapons like the American $187,000 per shot Javelin missile and British NLAW came in handy. Both are designed to take out heavily armored vehicles by using tandem warheads to blast through the outer armor and then destroy the vehicle from the inside. Javelins add destructive power by flying straight up in the air and then crashing down on top of the vehicle, where the armor is weakest. Dozens of videos from early in the war show these weapons, along with a host of similar devices from Germany, Canada, and Sweden, among others, were extremely effective. Fearful Russian tankies even went so far as to build cope cages, an umbrella of steel bars over the top of their tank turrets, in a vain attempt to stop the javelins. But a recent report by the Royal United Services Institute reveals that most Russian tanks destroyed in early fighting, particularly around Kiev, weren't hit by Western weapons. In fact, they were mostly destroyed by shells from 2 Ukrainian artillery brigades stationed in the capital, including a column of vehicles blown up in the city of Bucha. While Western anti-tank rockets certainly helped, it seems Ukraine didn't have enough of them compared to the number of tanks it was facing. When Russia's assault on Kiev failed, Putin shifted his war to the Donbass, where combat changed from tank assaults to an artillery duel. The key to winning this kind of warfare is a tactic known as shoot and scoot. An army has to wheel out its big guns, open fire on the enemy, and then pack up and leave before the enemy spots them and shoots back. Since the tactic relies on not being seen, it also means shooting at an enemy you can't see either. This is where Western supplied howitzer cannons and drones came into play. That is because Ukraine's artillery guns are all ex-Soviet, meaning it relies on Russia to make the ammo. And obviously, Moscow isn't handing any over right now. So, Kiev needed to swap to Western weapons, which use a different size shell so it could get more ammo from the West. America's M777 artillery gun was key to this plan and has often been seen in use in Ukraine, but a handful of other systems were also supplied. Poland sent dozens of its Crab mobile artillery guns. Britain and Norway sent the M109, France sent the Caesar, and Germany sent the Panzerhaubitze. Dozens of different spy drones were also sent, allowing Ukrainian scouts to spot Russian targets, relay their coordinates to the gunners positioned miles away, who would then blow the targets to bits. This helped Ukraine slow down Russia's march across the Donbass, including a massacre at the Bilahorivka River, but it couldn't stop the advance entirely. That's because Russia still had one key advantage: range. The M777 can shoot 13 miles, 25 if using a specialist kind of shell, but Russian rocket artillery can range more than 60 miles, which is where HIMARS comes in. One weapon, above all others, has helped turn the tide of the war in Ukraine's favor, and it is the M142 High Mobility Rocket Artillery System, better known as HIMARS. Using Gimler's rockets, these can range up to 60 miles and have GPS tracking built in, making them much more accurate than artillery shells. Each HIMARS vehicle is loaded with a pod of 6 rockets before going into battle, allowing them to drive into position, open fire, and then disappear again in a fraction of the time it takes an artillery gun to get 6 rounds away. Ukraine's armed forces have used these to extraordinary effect, taking out Russian ammo dumps, command posts, and other high-value targets near the front line. Russia's air defense system seemed powerless to stop the rockets, and HIMARS launchers moved too fast for Putin's forces to track and destroy. Since Joe Biden first announced Ukraine would get HIMARS back in June, not a single system has been blown up by Russia. This has forced Putin's commanders to move valuable supplies out of their range and away from frontline troops. Since HIMARS arrived in Ukraine, Russia's advances have slowed, stopped, and gone into reverse. The weapon has proved so effective that Kiev has repeatedly asked for more on top of the 16 it already has. Poland, which has good reason to fear its own Russian invasion, has bought 200 of them. All of those weapons have allowed Ukraine to fight Russia to a standstill and to regain about half of the territory that Putin has seized. But in order to win the war, more is needed. First on the list is advanced anti-air defense systems to protect power plants and heating systems from Russian missile attacks, which have battered the country in recent months. After weeks of negotiation, America has agreed to send a Patriot battery, which is extremely effective at taking down ballistic missiles, to Ukraine. Other systems, such as German Iris-T and Gepard guns, are already there, along with a second American-made missile called NASAMS. That will help Ukraine protect its cities, but it also needs weapons it can use during attacks. Valery Zaluzhny, Kiev's top commander, has said he needs 300 tanks, 700 infantry fighting vehicles, and 500 howitzers to guarantee victory. Ukraine is particularly keen on getting its hands on the German Leopard tank, though Berlin has so far refused to supply them. Other items on the Ukrainian shopping list include ATACMS, a very long-range missile that can be used with HIMARS, and fast attack jets, such as F-16s. As the war grinds on into its second year, expect debates around these weapons, which have already been going on for months, to heat up further. In the meantime, Ukraine will once again be relying on blood and bravery to get the job done. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe.